Fellow Mountaineers, welcome in to another edition of the Mountaineer Roundtable. I am the Beard. This is a pre-recorded space we had last night, August 21st, about 6 o'clock on XSpaces. We dive into the WVU football season for 2025, talk about Rich Rodriguez. Had a blast last night, a lot of fun. We feature Kuz's Corner, Whitey from the Old Grad podcast, Mountaineer Paul from Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. We had Jordan from the Country Roads webcast, and then Mike Oste and Luke Blaine from West Virginia Sports Now. Again, just a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy. Bear with me for the first 5 minutes. There were some technical difficulties, people trying to speak and talk, and they couldn't come through. But after about the 5-minute mark, we get into it, and we're good from there. So again, I hope you enjoy. Let's go Mountaineers. Okay, Mountaineer fans, it's that time again. This is the Mountaineer Roundtable. Hope you all are excited about this episode. We are going to be diving into the 2025 WVU football season, and really looking forward to it this year. A lot of hype coming into it. Obviously, Rich Rod is back. The Rodical Son has returned after a 17-year hiatus. And so a lot of excitement in the air. So what we do here at the Roundtable, if you're new to it, at most, we solve the world problems. At least, we're going to try to predict what we think is going to happen for the 2025 football season. Now, before we get started here, the other day I kind of ran through my own quick prediction, and we're not going to do everything game by game. It's just going to be an overview of what we think can happen this season, maybe some final records. But I have us going. I looked at it at 7-5, and I just kind of went through a gut reaction of what I thought was going to happen. And I actually have us going 4-2 on the road and 3-3 at home. And I'll run down this real quick. So I got wins at Robert Morris against OU on the road, Pitt at home, because I cannot even attempt to pick Pitt to win, even if they had full of NFL Hall of Famers came back to play, and we had to cobble a team together from Morgantown and University High. I would never pick Pitt to win. So I do have us losing to Kansas on the road, Utah at home, wins at BYU on the road, Central Florida on the road, loss at TCU, wins at Houston and against Colorado, and then closing out the season with a pair of losses at Arizona State and at Texas Tech. Now, I can dive into those a little bit more as we go, but I want to kind of hand the baton off. I'm just the host here. I try to get as many people as I can on to talk. So I know Whitey, Country Roads webcast, and Mike Oste have all sent you speaker invites. So whenever you guys are ready to hop on and start talking, I see I got Mike Oste here. He looks to be the first one. So, Mike, I always call on you. You have your ears to the ground, right? You're in the press conferences. And I like to keep my questions broad so you can give thorough answers. But what's the general feel around the program, at least amongst those in the media or people that you've talked to?
That is definitely a broad question for sure. And how are you doing, man? It's been a while since we did one of these, but always fun.
Yeah, it was December, and last time we did it, we were actually predicting who we thought would be the head coach.
That's right,
So it's kind of come full circle now.
Yeah, on the heels of the Brown firing, and then who was going to be the head coach, and then Rich Rod got the job, and then here we are again. And
right.
I do think that the vibe among the fans and the media is very similar going into this year in comparison to past years where there was a lot of division and toxicity. And why I think it's similar is everybody is left in a state of not being totally sure.
Oh, I think I lost you there, Mike. I think you cut off there. Well, that's okay. So we can go up to our next one. I think, Whitey, I have you next on the list here. So your take on it, you were a former player. You've had a glimpse of what Rich Rod is all about. Kind of give us a glimpse of what is happening in the locker room and in practices. And nobody again? Okay. I'm going to keep this thing going. We're going to move on down the road to the Country Roads webcast. I think I got Jordan on with me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Uh, so welcome in. I appreciate you joining this. I love your guys' show. I listened to the preview that you guys had. I think we had a couple of 9-3 seasons and an 8-4 season out of you guys, if I have that correct. So pretty optimistic. Um, so just give me the overall vibe that you feel as a WVU fan with Rich Rod coming back. What we've heard, the players that are now eligible, that we're waiting on their hearing. What's your overall feeling about what this season's going to be?
Yeah, man, we were super optimistic. We had one of us 9-3, that was me, and then Stephen and Brad both 8-4. So all feeling pretty good about the season, and maybe some nostalgia sneaking in there a little bit as well. But I think the roster that's been assembled with the transfers we've brought in, both of course on the offensive side, which we know is going to be pretty good with Rich Rod there. We know the offense is always good under his tutelage. So defensively, I think that's the one area we got to look to see and make sure there's improvements coming there, especially in the secondary. It's been a struggle under the past two coaching staffs, really. I think they've went out and made moves to try and alleviate those concerns in the secondary. I think they've went out and got a bunch of pass rushers. We've heard Zach Alley talk about, his scheme really needing to solidify the edges. I think they've done that with the corners, with the edge rushers, with the bandits. And, you look on paper, this is one of the more impressive coaching staffs in WVU football history. Really just depends on if it leads to wins or not, but certainly they've spent the money to go out and get a great staff. So I think all that bodes well for the upcoming season. But the one thing I keep going back to is just, to me, it's almost like the Big 12 is going to get to meet the real West Virginia, right? I
Right.
mean, no, I'm not trying to throw shade on any of the past two coaching staffs, but I mean, before that, we were a hard edge physical team. Past two coaching staffs, we had air raid coaches. You could maybe call it soft, call it what you want, but I think now going into this season, we're kind of getting back to what we all know and love about WVU, and that right there gets you excited for the upcoming season. You combine that with the staff that's been assembled, the roster that's been put together, as we've tried to cover here on the Country Roads webcast throughout the off season. I think there's a lot of great pieces, and if everything gels, I think it could be a really fun season for Mountaineer Nation.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up a good point about like the staff that we've brought in. I mean, today's age or day and age, money almost buys you wins at this point. Now it did before, but now it's more of a direct transaction, right? It's not just building up your facilities or McDonald's bags full of cash. Like it's out in the open, it's legit, and the more money you can spend, the better your team's going to be. It seems like, and we went out and got hopefully a first class defensive coordinator. Like he's a young up and comer, but from everything I've heard from people talking, it just seems like he is like a guy on the rise that, he may not be here long because he may be coaching his own team soon. We'll just have to see about that. And so now we got Mike back on. Osty, I think he cut out there, and Whitey told me he was in bad service, so he would come back when we got him. So, Mike, I'll jump back over to you. I believe I sent you a speaker invite while I'm waiting to him to hop back on. Whitey, I'll go to you just real quick while I'm waiting on Mike. What's your feeling of the program? What you know of Rich Rod? What you've experienced? What goes on in the locker rooms in the practice field? Ah, damn technology! It only does what it only does what it can do. So again, I'm gonna wait on Mike here, but I'll go back to the Country Roads webcast. What do you think? You said you were like 9-3. What makes you hopeful about what you see, what you've seen from this team, what you've heard from this team?
Yeah, I think I've been known to, as we like to call it on the show, wear the golden blue tinted glasses, right? Be a little bit optimistic. So
You're not
that's
the
that's
only one. Not the
yeah,
only
that's part
one.
of it. We're 0-0 right now in the preseason, so everyone's feeling pretty good about things. But now I think when you just look at the roster in general, I mean, it's a lot of new pieces, but it's a ton of seniors on this roster. There's a lot of experience in general, where you look at the offense or look at the defense. I think on offense, you pair a guy like Jaheim White into Rich Rod's system, and I think that could be, the perfect marriage. That's going to be something that's really fun to watch. And like I said, what the offense is going to be under Rich Rod, kind of. You've seen it every stop that he's been at. He's produced offensively. So, really, to me, the question goes, can they, improve defensively? And I think you look at the pieces that they brought in, and whether you look at defensive backs with, Michael Coates, one of the best cornerbacks in the country, Jordy Scruggs as well, who was both those two were rated as two of the top returning corners in the Big 12, according to PFF. You bring in a defensive player of the year in Jamori Robinson, who's going to be a phenomenal pass rusher, one of the best we've had since Bruce Irvin. I don't think, you can look beyond him and really see how much West Virginia improved the pass rush in general, because it's not only Jamori Robinson. You also have Devin Grant, who was at Colorado, who did some great pass rushing stats there at Incarnate Word. You have Braden Siders coming over as well. You have Marshawn Oxley and Keenan Eck coming from the JUCO levels. You have Eddie Kelly coming from Missouri. I mean, just off the top of my head, that's 5 or 6 guys that can really get to the passer. You add that in with linebackers that are tackling machines and a guy like Chase Wilson. You see what Zach Alley had at Oklahoma with Danny Stutzman. I mean, you can go on down the list. I don't want to take up too much time here, but I mean, when you look at each of these pieces, to me, there's a lot of talent here. It's just a matter of if it gels or not. And like I said, you pair that with the staff West Virginia has assembled, and I think you start to feel pretty optimistic about this upcoming season. Like I said, it's a lot of ifs in there for sure. I'm well aware of that, but I just think the talent speaks volumes, in my opinion. And you pair that with the great coaching that you have under Rich Rod and you have under Zach Alley, I think it's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the thing about Rich Rod is we know that he can get the most out of players, right? Some of the greatest players we've had in this program under him weren't really highly recruited and kind of flew under the radar. And, you got to think that that's promising. And then you have someone like a talent who was a recruit like Nico, who was a 4-star. Jaheim wasn't, but we know what he can do. And then you have someone like Rodney Gallagher that was a 4-star. What are they going to do when Rich Rod pushes them to the abilities beyond what we've seen? And so I think that's going to be exciting for the offense. I do have Mike Ostie back now. I think I had to make him a co-host. But Mike, if you can remember where you were, pick up where you left off. I saw that there was a Dylan that popped in. He was one of the first ones, so I'll give him a chance to speak his mind. What do you think about the 2025 season?
Hey, what's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hey, so, well, first off, I think we might have had the same. I think
You hear me
almost
better
the
now?
Same identical.
Yes, Mike, I can hear you.
All right, good. All right, cool.
That's
Let him
I think
Dylan
it might
go
have
though.
even
But
been
all
the
right.
same. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I think it might have been about the same prediction, as far as the games go. But even at a 7-5 season, I think for this team, it would look a lot different than what the last administration would have had us looking at a 7-5. Because I think when you have a team that is trying to have the hard edge mentality and the outwork everyone you play mentality. I think you're even when you lose games, you're going to lose them closer. They're going to look more competitive. So when you have, if you look at like the Kansas State and the Iowa State games from last year, where it was just deer in the headlights from the, out the gate, I don't think a Rich Rod team's going to let that happen, especially multiple weeks where a team walks into Morgantown and just kind of sticks it to you for 4 quarters. So I think the optimism should definitely be looked at as far as like the team looking more competitive.
Yeah, I agree. We know what the teams look like before under Rich Rod, and it doesn't seem like he's changed much. Maybe he's gotten a little bit softer with, the ice cream machines and things like that. But that is one thing that I always said was missing from the Neil Brown era is that you just did not see the physicality like you used to. And so, sure enough, Ren Baker made the hire, and we at least have that back, which if you're going to win games, you got to be physical. That's just kind of an underlining rule. And so, Mike, you're back now, so I'll jump back over to you. Fourth time's the charm.
Third, fourth time's the charm. Do you have me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't exactly know where I left off before, but what I was trying to get to is I do think entering this season, the fans and media are kind of more aligned, and even sounds like from what people are saying prior to me now actually being able to talk in this space are kind of expressing that there's at minimum a sense of intrigue, but no one really knows how good this team is actually going to be in year one. Whereas in past years, it was kind of a toxic vibe, and even people that thought, okay, maybe they could surprise people. The interest level, starting the last couple of years of Brown, maybe going into the Penn State game, people were excited. Going into the Brawl rebirth, people were excited about those games. But there was just a toxic vibe, a down vibe, certainly amongst the fans. They just kind of wanted to see something else. And even the Rich Rod haters that are not over 2007, it does appear that everyone's at minimum interested, excited, and intrigued. And maybe they're secretly rooting against Rich Rod. Like we see a lot on social media, it seems like everybody is kind of forgiven the past. When you're walking around Morgantown, even talking to some older media members and conversations that, just having lunch, not everyone's over it. Not everyone. It's not unanimous. If you talk to people who are not on social media, it's not unanimous that everyone's over it. There might be some rooting against him. There certainly are some fans that I even know that are not thrilled about him being the coach, but they do come off like there's a sense of excitement, intrigue, and more belief that he'll definitely turn it around eventually than was there in recent years, even if they don't like Rich Rod as a person. So I think that's kind of the vibe right now. Fans and media, there's an excitement, there's a curiosity, there's an intrigue. Nobody really knows. I mean, I've seen every prediction that you see around, everyone couches it with they could be really good unless these things happen, or they could be really bad unless all these what ifs happen. Like, no one's really sure how the team's going to do, but there's a sense of curiosity and excitement and we're seeing that with ticket sales. You're seeing that, and you're getting it without having a big game in week one because I think what Rich Rod's getting helped by, and I brought this up back in December, man, he's joining up at the best schedule opportunity he's had that he could possibly have that the program's had in recent years. If he was starting this 80-player rebuild, 80-player transferred in and out overhaul rebuild with Penn State in week one, or even the Brawl in week one, that would be much harder. He's going to take position battles through the first game of the season because he knows it's an FCS game. He wouldn't be doing that if it was Penn State. So he has a little bit of an early season cushion that maybe could generate some excitement if they do start 1-0, 2-0, certainly 3-0, and get the Brawl win. But there's at least a curiosity that exists. And I think most people do believe he'll eventually have them relevant, even if maybe not in year one, even people that don't like Rich Rod, whereas there was just so much angst and toxicity the last several years.
Yeah, and you make a good point about there's at least intrigue, there's interest, right? Even if not everyone is sold on Rich Rod coming back. I wasn't when we did our last, roundtable. Okay. I was like, there's no way they're going to hire them. It's like bringing back your ex. And then as soon as I heard that he was hired, I instantly got excited again. I'm like, I forget what I said. This is awesome, and it's just kind of, that's what he meant to the program. That's what he meant to the fans, and the success we've had, we haven't even come close since. So I think if we even get half of that, it'll be worth the rehire. And like you said, with the ticket sales, I mean, again, I go back to everything's money, and the more you can generate, the better off you're going to be. So that's at least part of this hire, right? That generates a lot of buzz, and like you said, with the ticket sales and everything.
Oh, sure. 100%. Ren knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
He knew that there would be a financial buzz and they would get more into NIL and there would be ticket sales and they would have more for the staff. And he knew all that would come with this at this point. And Rich Rod even saying at Big 12 Media Days that he looked into the job 5-6 years ago. So after Dana, he mentioned he looked into it and was told, you're not even a top 5 candidate. Don't worry about it. Basically, you have no chance. And then he forgot about it. At that time, it wasn't the Rich Rod era, but it was a perennially ranked program for the most part. There were some, a couple bad years, but Dana did win a conference title, did win an Orange Bowl, had another 10-win season a couple years before his exit. It wasn't anything close to Rich Rod, but it also was way better than the Neil Brown era. The program wasn't as desperate. I think you come off the Neil Brown era, 6 years in a row of not being in the AP poll, first time in half a century you hear that. Your win is the Mayo Bowl is your biggest win. That is below the standard. And then I think the program got to a point where, okay, we will be willing to sell our soul to the devil, for lack of a better phrase, if it makes us relevant again, gets us financial boost again we need in this era, and we believe that we eventually can win. And he's excited and reinvigorated to do it as well. I don't know if this would have happened years ago, even if Ren Baker was the AD and had more of a modern thinking. He might even at that time said, we're not as desperate to do this. Rich, you had your opportunity and you screwed it up, and that's it. Now, I think there's a desperation that they realized they just had to dig out of this. They just had to find a way to not be on a graphic of one of the 6 programs that hadn't been in an AP poll in 100 weeks. Like, that's insanity.
Yeah.
So I think that led them to Rich Rod, and it kind of was a perfect storm to get him here. It'll remain to be seen what happens in year one. I do think if they get a bowl appearance and certainly beat Pitt, that for the most part, I think most fans will say, okay, good enough, do better next year. Now we're excited again. We'll put more money in. If it's a 2001, I mean, Whitey knows this. If it's a 2001 3-8 year, Pitt blows you out at home, and you're just awful besides your FCS win, I do think that some of the fans that are excited now, that are curious now, that forgave him now, maybe will say, no, it's been 10 years since you had Power 4 success. We're not Jacksonville State. We're not paying more next year. We're done. And they may leave. It might not be fair to him because it's year one, but there's a lot on the line this year. I don't think he needs to go ahead and win the conference title, but there needs to be a respectability that they're competitive, that they're a bowl team, they're back to relevance. And even if they only have 6 wins that Neil Brown still produced a year ago, that it just gives a better vibe to those 6 wins. I don't think it can be a 3-8 season, even if some are saying just let him do whatever in year one, like it's an exhibition year. I don't think he can do that in this era, but anything's in play as a possibility for sure.
Yeah, I think bottom line, if we, even if we lose games, if we make teams remember when they played us, with physicality, and the fans can see that. And Richard even referenced that. Like, I want the fans, the most casual fans, to look and see how physical we actually play. Like, that means, you're progressing, you're going somewhere. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Whitey, who, again, former player, played under Rich Rod. So just kind of tell us about the man himself and what the players went through. I know it's been 17 years since he was last here, and so many since you played underneath him. But
you never forget. You never forget.
Yeah.
I mean, he's laid it out there. He's the same guy. You guys all saw the same clip I saw of him at practice, going bananas on one of the managers because they weren't simulating a game as a referee quickly enough.
Right.
I've listened to parts of this, what you guys have said. I apologize if I'm redundant at all to anything anybody else has said. I'm looking at this as 2 different things. There's the season, and then there's the program, going forward. This season, I mean, the one thing about Coach Rod, until he finds his quarterback, anything can happen. I'm hopeful that by the time we play Pitt, we know who that guy is. Going back to 05 when we really, turned the corner there, it wasn't until the 3rd game that Pat White kind of took the helm when the Bednarik, what game was the Louisville, the 5th game?
It was like the 7th game, I think.
Was it
They
the
were
7th?
4-1, I'm pretty sure, with Big Neric. I think it was
Okay,
the 5th.
so 6th game. It's I think the wins and losses are going to go as our quarterback does. I'm with you guys. I think it's going to be a roughly 6-5 regular season. Hopefully, we can go represent ourselves well in the bowl game. If we go bowling this year, I consider that a victory in year one. There's a lot of similarities between the 01 transition, and there's a lot of differences these days. We roll a roster over 70 new faces in that locker room. That's a big deal. But the one thing he does have this time around that he didn't have last time, he's got more familiar guys on that coaching staff with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's bringing guys that he's close with. He's bringing guys in that he trusts. So a lot of the barriers, the things that we aren't going to see as fans behind closed doors, there's going to be some continuity there. He went out and got Zach Alleyway from Oklahoma. I know Mike can speak to this probably better than I can, and Paul, guys that associate with Big 12 folks, but they did not want us to get that guy. That's our biggest recruit this entire offseason. And then it sounds overwrought or oversimplified, but the toughness. Like it just wasn't there. We you'd see it in glimpses over the last couple of years, but it now is unacceptable to not be tough at any point of any game. You see what he was talking about. What was the chant like? What is a teammate doing if they loaf? You know, you got betrayal, right?
Right.
So a traitor. So it's not acceptable. And I can remember that first camp. We were huddled up after our first live scrimmage, and Coach Trickett, it was a hot day. He's like, "You guys better wear sweatpants to practice today." It was a shells practice, and what they did was the entire offense circled up, and one by one he called each player out, and you would run to the center, you would state your name, and they would show you a piece of paper, and you would tell the team how many times you loafed. It's like my name is Justin Williams. I cost the team 37 times. Like some of these receivers that they were really on to hustle through the whistle. You guys watch wide receivers in the NFL. You know if it's a run or pass play the second the ball snapped.
Right.
That was not acceptable for us. And we did something like 400 up downs. I think everybody on the team had a pulled groin after that. It was unbelievable. But the standard and this first group, it'll lighten as time comes because players start to hold each other accountable. But but this year's more about a transition. What I expect to see on the field, people are going to fly around. We're going to swarm to tackle. Linemen are going to run down the field and be blocking in the secondary on plays where people catch the ball. Things that we haven't done in the last, going back to Dana, even to Coach Stewart to an extent, that's not going to fly. And it is going to take a time. The wins and losses will come, but you look at a Kansas State, Iowa State, teams in a similar scenario that West Virginia has, the obstacles that we have. We're not going to be able to turn a $30 million payroll like Double Eagles affording Texas Tech, the oil and gas company. We're not going to be able to do that. But what we can do is rebrand ourselves as the toughest sons of bitches in college football. And when they come to play us, and it again, it's trite. It almost sounds like commercial and cheap, but they're going to remember they played the Mountaineers. And that is something every guy in that locker room takes pride in. That's why I was on a podcast unbelievably shedding tears when he came back. I didn't know how much this meant, but there was a sense of betrayal. But man, I can tell you right now, the alumni. I was talking to Owen today. Like we're all coming back, man. Like everybody's lined up. We're sick of the bullshit that we've been seeing out on the field. It's going to be something that people are going to be proud of. The kids are going to work their tails off. We're going to have respect for them, and it's going to be fun to be a Mountaineer fan. What I think we're probably going to do this year, we're going to lose some games that are going to drive you crazy. But I would almost guarantee you we're going to beat a team that nobody sees coming. And we didn't do that one time the entire time Neil Brown was here. I'll be happy if we go bowling and beat a ranked team. That would satisfy me for year one.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal I had. I said beat Pitt and earn a bowl. And I think if we do beat Pitt and we would beat them handily, I think a lot would be forgiven for some people that are still on the fence about it. And you brought up a good point about like the guys will take accountability and play for each other. It's kind of the same result that Neil Brown was looking for, but it wasn't out of fear or out of perseverance, or it was let's have cookouts and play musical chairs. Like that was how we were going to build the family. Rich Rod approaches it a much different way, and I think it's more effective. And you've been through it, you understand that it's the kind of band of brothers stuff, right? You're both going
Absolutely.
through this torture together, so
The,
there is a stronger bond than hey, we had a tight ends pool party at the coach's house.
right. And the Pitt game feels like the Maryland game of old. We're playing a major conference school. Pitt has two All-Americans, three. Like you see Reed, and then two of the guys on the defense at the second level. I mean, there's no doubt Pitt has talent. Pitt always has. I always say this to my buddies up here, but part of it's true. No team does less with more than the Pitt Panthers. Um, they've got perennial All Pros and Hall of Famers, and they 7-6 every year. But boy, it'd be nice to smash those guys in Morgantown. That would be a special day. There'd be a lot of good feelings. But I don't think anything can be. It's not going to definitely be all won or all lost this year. This is a big year when you're trying to change the culture, and we talked a lot in December when we talked. That's what I brought up then. You're not seeing the cultural change you need to. This guy, that's the first thing he's doing. So if he can get that accomplished, and we have enough guys left over, the other side back to we went 3-8 though when we changed the culture. Well, what were we down 20 some scholarships at that point because so many guys quit and left, and you couldn't just go out and pluck them out of thin air like you can now. So uh, I do expect to be a better, more rounded team than we were in 01 the first time he came around because frankly, we were thin. Um, Literally, we were thin. What the average offensive lineman was 275 pounds. After getting ragdolled through the Big East one year, he learned a lesson there, but he's learned a lot of lessons like that over the years. So I think we are seeing a better. You can watch Coach Rodriguez at some press conferences about to blow his shit, and he restrains himself just a little bit. There was none of that the first time around. So you can see the maturity in the guy. And, man, I'm just real excited to watch those guys. I think you're going to hear it more than you're going to see it at first, but the pads are going to be popping next Saturday. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and I think one of the big differences from 2001 is, like with NIL, we can go handpick the players.
100%.
And they may not
100%.
be the best players out there, but you can look at the film and you're not just inheriting what was left over. You go pick them. So I know we talk about this high turnover rate of almost 80 guys at this point, but it could be the addition by subtraction. Like the guys that left that didn't want to be here, do you want them here? Where are they going to cut it to begin with? So the guys that have stuck it out this long, they're in for the long haul. They're going to put their all into it.
We walked out that first team meeting when Coach Rodriguez introduced himself to us. It was 2 hours long. A lot of yelling. We'd never met the guy before, and he's already screaming at us. And then we walked out there. Some guys went into meetings rooms. They called a few guys out individually. They basically just told 10 guys on the spot, like, we'll give you a scholarship this semester, but you're not playing here anymore.
Oof.
Like, it was a huge culture shock. I mean, that's kind of the business now.
Yeah.
These guys are employees, so it's nothing new. But yeah, the guys that have come back have been put through the ringer. This is, I mean, not we are to some extent. What is it? The band of brothers, man. These guys have been through hell. David Schwimmer's been running them up the hill for a couple months now, so uh, we'll see what falls out of this. But that I can tell you one thing. This is going to be a tough, angry bunch of SOBs who are ready to take it out on somebody else. That's exactly what we were. I remember we would write that first year, we would write ACL on our wrist tape just to get the offensive or the defensive lineman thinking about cut blocks and stuff like that until some officials took umbrage with that. So these are going to be we weren't the most talented guys in the world, but we were second, third, fourth, fifth in the country in rushing yards every year. Another one, man, if Bicknell can get those guys going, man, it's going to be really important if we have an offensive line that's in unison. I'm going to be on the sideline before the game. I'm anxious to look at those guys and just see how they. Honestly, you can tell if them firing out on air what kind of a line they're going to be to some extent. But if they're all in simpatico and in step, like man, it almost looks like like what is that in the water where everybody's doing the same motion. These guys are taking the exact same step.
Yeah.
That's poetry in motion. If we can get that going, man, that's the other thing. I don't think teams are as tough as they used to be because there's so much turnover. If a tough situation arises, they leave. These guys have no choice. Even if you're staying for a year, you're going to need to be a tough son of a bitch, or you're not going to be able to fake your way through it. So,
Right.
looking forward to it, man. Can't wait to see the product on the field.
Yeah, I'll be there in the first game, so I'm looking forward to it. I hope some point in the season, I pray that we get to see the defense jump off sides and the lineman freeze, and the center falls over like a dead,
like Dan Moses used to, like a dead,
I
like a
love
possum.
That was so much fun to watch. But I appreciate your time, Whitey, and if we have time, we'll get back to you around.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to throw it over to Mountaineer Paul. I know he's been waiting a while, and then I think I'll put on Coos after him. Paul, I know you do a deep dive in a lot of these players. You got connections with them and talk about them. Who are some of some players that maybe the casual fan is not thinking of, right? We know Nico, we know Gallagher, we know Jaheim White, guys like that, Carrico. Who are some other players that maybe you think might have a breakout season that we're not really thinking of?
Breakout season's kind of tough. I think there's a lot of guys that can make impacts. Marshawn Oxley's a guy, right? He's a guy that's got really, really good get off, actually comparable to Jamoy Robinson as far as get off ball goes. He's a really, really good pass rusher. Really love watching his tape. He's going to make an impact at the bandit spot for West Virginia this year. Absolutely. I think another guy that a lot of people probably aren't hearing a whole lot about that I think is going to make an impact is Devin Grant, the defensive line on the defensive end side. When you go back and look at his Colorado tape, he absolutely took people to the woodshed when he was there. And then an incarnate word was almost a double-digit sacks guy. Chase Wilson obviously is a 100-plus tackle guy, no doubt about it. He's going to be the quarterback of that defense for sure. And then a couple guys on the back end, man. I'm telling you, our defense, and I've told people this on my show, and this is my personal belief. I believe our defense is going to be one of the 3 or 4 best in the Big 12 in year one. I don't know what's going to happen as a team. I don't know how many games we're going to win, but I know this. We've got some guys. I like both of our corners. I like all 3 of our nickel safeties. If you look at our nickel safety room, there's 4 guys in that room that are really good. You look at obviously Fred Perry's an elite player. We know that. Then you look at Will Davis, who had 126 tackles, 12 interceptions, three returned for a touchdown in his time at an HBCU college. Then you go from there. We just got Justin Harrington yesterday. He started at Oklahoma. So like you start to dig deep into some of the back end. It gets pretty exciting. And if you look at the numbers and what Zach Alley did at Oklahoma, he took a Venables defense as it was 77th in 2023 that allowed 388 yards a game and moved it up to 19th nationally, 324 yards a game. Scoring defense went from 46th to 30th. Rushing defense went from 39th to 23rd. Passing defense went from 112th to 44th. Tackles for loss, the same, 98, top 10 nationally. Sacks went from 24 to 33. Turnovers went from 26 to 24, so only 2 less. Top 11 nationally in limiting first downs. He's an elite defensive coordinator. He's done it everywhere he's been. Jacksonville State was top 15 defense when he was there. So, and he did that in year one. And you're talking about going from what most people would consider the best, one of the 2 or 3 best defensive coordinators in all of college football, and Brent Venables. You hand this over to Zach Alley, and in 1 year, absolutely dominates him statistically. So I think they went out and found guys they really like. I've watched the tape on all of them multiple times. Darren Lloyd's a safety that comes over from Akron that I think is one of the most underrated players on the entire roster. So, I mean, there's a ton of dudes on this back end. They went out and found their guys. Did they go out and get Power 4 starting guys that everybody's going to know about? No, but there are so many players in the portal that you can make hay and you can find your guy in the portal. Ben Bogle, go watch his tape at Southern Illinois. That dude can play, and he's in a linebacker room that's pretty competitive. Like, there are guys littered all over the defense that I'm in love with. Like, I mean, maybe it's like you said earlier, maybe it is nostalgia. Maybe it is, and I'll find out. Like, this is going to be a big year for me as somebody that's a hobbyist when watching tape, because like when I watched the Neil Brown guys, there was a couple guys here and there that I liked, but I've never watched as many dudes that we brought over that I'm like, holy cow, he's good. Wait, he's good. Wait, he's good. This guy's really good. And as I look up and down on the defensive side, I get really excited, man. I really do. And if you look at our wide receiver room, I think it's really deep. I just think people are missing. I really do. I'm not saying we're winning 10 games. I promise you I'm not. But I think we're a much better football team. It just depends on how quick we all gel. If this team, as many seniors as we have, is in year 2 or 3 together, I'm picking us to win probably 9 or 10 games. But unfortunately, it's in year 1, 70-plus new players playing together. And to Whitey's point, that's really hard to do, and he knows it firsthand.
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be a major factor, as it is for any team. But defense is not something that we've been used to, a strong defense, for quite a few seasons, especially in the turnover department, right? That's something that Neil Brown just could never grasp is getting our team in the positive in the turnover rate. I think in the 9-4 season, I think we were average 0.2 per game more than the other team, and that's about as high as it got. And so that's something that's going to be interesting. And can the defense carry us early while the offense is trying to get in rhythm, right? We all know what the offense is. We've seen it, and when it's clicking, it's amazing. But sometimes it takes a little bit to get in rhythm, right? We talked about the O linemen working together and everyone, kind of getting their assignments and stuff like that. In the meantime, can the defense keep us in games until both sides are clicking on all cylinders? And so I think that'll be the big question on there. And so I'll flip it over to Coos here. Paul, appreciate all that insight. I know you guys, the players probably better than most people. So I appreciate you doing all that work, and we'll try to come back around to you. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I want Coos to hop on. He's been waiting a while as well. Coos, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Thanks. Sorry I was a little bit late.
No problem. No problem. With this many people, it kind of helps that people are able to filter in and out, right? And so everyone's not waiting there forever. So I don't know how much you've heard. We had Mike on, we had Whitey and Paul and Jordan from Country Road Webcast and everything. What is your general feel of what this team can be or what this season's going to be? You can give me a prediction if you haven't yet. If you want to say that to your show, that's fine. But just the general feel of what this season could be.
Yeah, we already did our season prediction show, so I'm not afraid.
Okay.
I don't have an issue.
I didn't want you to.
No, that's okay. I don't mind sharing it with you. My feel is it's probably a 500 team, only because of all the new pieces. I do like the talent on the team. I obviously love Coach Rod being back. I think he's a hell of a football coach. But I just, this many new guys, I think it's unrealistic to expect a team to go out and win 9, 10 football games, even 8 games, really, especially when you look at the schedule. So 6, 7 wins is probably where I land right now. But I like Paul's excitement about the defense. I do think the defense, believe it or not, I think the defense may be the better of the two this year, only because, I have some little concerns about the O-line gelling, like what he talked about. And, there's just so many unanswered questions on that side of the ball. I mean, we know Jaheim White will be good, but, can the offensive line get pushed, right? We don't know who the quarterback's going to be, how good they're going to play. We've heard mixed reviews about the wideouts. We've heard great things about the slots, but how are the wideouts going to play, right? I mean, there's just so many unanswered questions that I think the defense, I don't want to say have to carry them, but I do like the fact the defense, I do like the defense a little better just on paper than I do the offense. But yeah, I think a 500 team or 7-win team is kind of where I sit right now as far as expectations.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I mean, you at least want to have a winning record, and I think it's certainly possible. But you brought up schedule, which I think is interesting because, this is a renewed schedule that we haven't had in a while, right? We're not playing 11 Power 4 teams in a 12-team schedule, right? We have the slow ramp up. You start with Robert Morris, and then you go to at Ohio, which, is going to be tough.
Right.
But we should win that one. We'll have to see. And then you get the backyard brawl, which is going to be at home. Man, I wish I could go to that game. I think that's going to break some recent attendance records. Not the all time.
I'm pumped. I can't wait.
But I think we're going to see more than we have in probably maybe the last 10, 15 years at one game. But what I wanted to talk about the schedule is, it's hard to tell because you look at it early on and you see like playing at Kansas, playing Utah at home, at BYU. That looked like that could have been an automatic loss. But now they lost their quarterback and they have a freshman back, or a freshman that's been named their starter. That's a whole different dynamic now. You're looking at a completely different team. Obviously, UCF is starting over. You got TCU at home, Houston on the road, Colorado at home. How will they do, Dion and Morgantown? I think the two hardest ones are probably going to be the last two of the season at Arizona State and Texas Tech at home. And the one with Arizona State, I know people are so high on them, and I understand it, but I kind of feel like they're going to take a step back because Chris Anderson had this on the Country Roads Confidential. He mentioned it briefly. He thought that a lot of their offense ran through Cam Scatteraboo. I mean, some of the physical runs he would have just to get them first downs, they're not going to have that this year. So are they going to be the same team? And you could say that
Did
about
you
all of them. I mean, this this
did you
this Big 12 is so tight, you really don't know which way the chips are going to land.
to your point, man? Their passing offense ran through him at the beginning of last season. Like I'm a night owl, so I was staying up till 11 o'clock watching those games. But you're absolutely right. That team was picked 16th last year. They're picked first this year. Yeah, I'd say there's some opportunity for some regression there.
Yeah, I don't know if, and it's easy to say that because they got a lot of pieces back, and I understand it, but still, I kind of honed on that Scatteraboo. You watched him in the playoff game, and he kept them in the game single handedly with some of these physical runs he had, and we'll just have to see. And so, I'm going to jump over to Luke Blaine. He is Mike Ostie's right-hand man there at WVU Sports now. Luke, are you on?
Yep, I'm right
Yep,
here. Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. Hey, man, how's it going?
Awesome, going great, man. I'm sorry if it sounds a little weird. I'm on the road right now, heading back to Parkersburg for the weekend, but I appreciate you having some time for
Hey,
me.
no problem. I actually live around the Parkersburg area. So are you on Route 50?
No, I'm on 79 right now. I will get on
Okay, yeah,
50, which
that's a fun
I
drive.
hate 50.
Drove it many times.
Oh, 50's the worst.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
appreciate you coming on and giving up your time for the evening, especially while you're driving. Just be careful. Um,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I've watched a few of your and Mike's sessions on YouTube, your Mountaineer Report and things like that. So kind of just based on what we've talked about, the upcoming schedule, the players we have, especially the ones that are now eligible. What's your overall feel for what the team's going to be this year?
I do tend to lean on the side of so many players, so many new players, especially in a sport like football, where it's so kind of chemistry oriented and there's a level of cohesiveness that's required on both sides of the ball. And this many new players, I just have a hard time in year one seeing more than, I mean, on our Mountaineer Report show yesterday, I predicted 5-7. I could definitely see a ceiling of 7-5, and I tend to look at it this way. You think about some of the more established teams. I think right now, looking at the schedule, I see three games that I would chalk up as losses right away. I see Arizona State, I see Texas Tech, and BYU, even with the freshman quarterback, as long as that kid can go out there and put the ball where it needs to be and just kind of hold the steering wheel for the
Mm-hmm.
offense, I definitely think BYU is still very good. The only the only definite win, I could be talked into seeing Houston as a definite win just because Houston, Zach Alley played against them last year with Oklahoma, held them to 12 points. But I mean, really, the only game that I can confidently 100% like bet my life on that this team will win is RMU next weekend. And it's just I think the schedule's favorable in terms of how it's set up. I do love FCS, then OU, and then you get into your non-conference P4 team. I think that's great. I mean, I just graduated in May. WVU was never undefeated during my time because they always had that P4, P5 team week one. So you have a 1-0 start locked up. I do think they'll go 3-0 to start the year. But I think where this team benefits is they're going to be seeing like that mobile run and gun quarterback a lot. You're going to see Parker Navarro. You're going to see Eli Holstein. I would imagine the kid from BYU probably has some wheels on him, given the way they like to play. But you're going to see that kind of archetype of quarterback a lot. So maybe as the weeks go on, they can be better prepared defensively as the season goes on. Obviously, you're going to have more tape on anybody as the year goes along. But I think the coaching staff definitely is where this team shines at the moment. If they can put those players in the position to make plays and, just outplay other teams, then they might prove me wrong a little bit. But right now, I'm just, I don't see them winning. I mean, shoot, I have 4 games that I think for certain. I don't see them having the power to win 8 coin flip games. And that's just kind of where I stand with it right now because, maybe especially on the defensive side, I have the utmost faith in Zach Alley, and maybe the players will fit the system perfectly and things will go well. But we did see in years past. I think the Mountaineer defense in years past had good players. I just think the scheme, like under Jordan Leslie, was off, and that's where you end up with some of those defensive pitfalls. Like Garnett Hollis, he was a highly touted player coming out of Northwestern. I just don't think. I mean, obviously, his tenure as a Mountaineer was disappointing, and I think that was in large part due to the scheme. But it's just gonna. I mean, you know, maybe there's magic in this Mountaineer squad, and maybe they prove me wrong and go out and win 9 games. I mean, the Big 12. The sad fact is nobody knows anything about the Big 12, and that's why they're not doing the media poll this year. Is because it's going to be wrong no matter what. I mean, Utah was projected to win the whole thing, and they were in dead last year, and that's where WVU benefits. Is you really just anything can happen, particularly in the Big 12.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very tight league. I think there was some stat where they led in the overall point margin of each victory was like a touchdown or less or something like that, and it was like the tightest conference of all of them.
Yes.
And the one thing that we know about Rich Rodriguez, and I will say, Luke, I feel bad for you that you just graduated and all you've known is Neil Brown because
Dude, you took the words
because
right
there,
out of
there
my
was
mouth.
there
The
was the
thing,
one good year. I did love the Duke's Mayo Bowl year. I had a lot of fun watching that team. They were a Hail Mary and a caught punt against Oklahoma State
right,
away from like being in the Big 12 championship game. And
right.
if we want to be super technical, they were in talks for the Big 12 championship game up until the final game last year. But
Yeah, there
that
was it was
on a
mathematically possible. I was keeping
super
track of
super
that. So
technicality.
right,
Yeah.
and you're talking to someone who was there. I started my freshman year was Don Nealon's last season, and so I got to
Okay.
see
Okay.
Nealon into Rodriguez, and kind of we know the history of all that. It's kind of been a bumpy ride ever since. We've had some highlights, but never the consistency. But one thing we know about Rich Rod and his offense, or at least his teams, is they play better down the stretch. Like
Mhm.
his overall record in like November is ridiculous. And if you look at the last 4 games, we're at Houston, Colorado at home, at Arizona State, at Texas Tech. If we found a way to go like 3-1 in that stretch, or something like that, which, who knows? Like we've talked about, the Big 12 is just way up in the air. So, what I want to do is go back around the top. So I think I started with Jordan from Country Roads Webcast, and we'll go on through. The one thing I want to talk about last is the big game on the schedule, the backyard brawl. And
Whoa.
Jordan, I invite you. You're there as a listener, but I invite you to be a speaker. So when that pops in, I'll go to you. But then we'll go over to Whitey first. He was next on my list. How big is the backyard brawl this year? Is it bigger than what it was when we renewed it? Is it bigger than the last time that we beat them? They were ranked, I think, under Bill Stewart. We had that last second field goal by Bittenkurt, I believe it was. Like, where does this rank for all-time backyard brawls?
so unfortunately, the one that has to rank first is the most meaningful and reverberates around all of college football. But we're not going to talk about that.
No.
We're going to talk. We're going to focus on uh, the Bittenkurt one, which I was at. Fantastic, big win. However, we were kind of at the end of the thing. It wasn't as big as the games that we'd been playing in more recently. is something I would mark down to the detriment of that game. Like, don't get me wrong, I was super pumped when I was at that game,
Right.
but I didn't really have that feeling walking around on Monday morning of that week. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I can remember the Sugar Bowl or the '07 game. I felt that, and I felt that the first one this round, and we're 0-2 in those games to this point. I could argue this game being the second most important of those games if we go out and win.
Yeah.
We can't afford to put it on that pedestal if we lose. Teams run high and run low. You got to focus on moving forward. You do not have time to look backwards, or things can get sideways really quick. I do think I will say this. I don't, Luke. I'm sure you have some memories of the good old days to some extent, but brother, what you're going to see, I don't know if it's going to result in wins and losses, but I'm excited for you to look at this team and counteract what you've seen over the last 8 years. The first time you watch this team play the FCS team, it's just going to be different. It's like watching a kid go from junior high to varsity. I now think, looking at where the coaches are that were on that staff last year, I don't think we've had a worse staff in my lifetime. So I do think we're going to make, and you mentioned that yourself, that it's a huge upgrade. But, and I'm not trying to talk at you, just really people your age and guys that haven't gotten to see it, because man, I just think we're going to be at a different level than we've been in a long time, just through effort and coaching that effort. It's that simple. But I think that's why Alabama won all the time, every single game, because Saban had both things. He had all the talent and he coached the same ferocity that Rod does. But this is going to be a special year, I think. Uh, I don't know how the record's going to look, but you're going to see an upswing at the end of it, and you're going to feel a lot better going into the next offseason than you did going into this one, which I admit the bar is low.
Yeah, you can't get much worse than than getting blown out by Texas Tech. I mean, that's
No,
the now. I guess we had the bowl in against Memphis, but I got to be honest, that feels like that didn't even happen. Like
I
it
know.
feels like that. I don't remember watching all of it, and I'm pretty sure that I
Barely
did.
cared. It was like 1 a.m.
Yeah, it was
too,
like
or something crazy.
I feel like I had a concussion or something during it. It's just like flashes here and there. But I think I might have Jordan back from Country Roads webcast. Jordan, you with me? I don't think he's there. Oh,
Everyone's driving. That's what
yeah, I
happens.
know. That's what happens when you get him at this hour. So I'll knock it over to Paul, and then I'll go to Kuz, and then Luke again. We'll close this out. Paul, for you, what is this backyard brawl? Where does it rank for you? Not even like what the outcome could be, but just the hype coming into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's got to be number 2 all time, right? For me personally, um, obviously, I've shared this on my show, so I'm not embarrassed to share it here. I had a tumultuous 2007. Anyway, I was in a community-based correctional institution, forced into rehab. I lied about how long I'd been there in order to be able to watch the game, because you had to be there for 30 days. I'd only been there for like 28 days. So not only did we lose the game, but I got in trouble for lying about that to be able to watch TV. But as a grown man, I remember crying that day. I mean, I was destroyed over it. So I don't know if anything can approach that. But I do think that this is 17 years in the making. You've got so many factors that it's hard to really incorporate them all into words, because you've got 17 years in the making. You've got 9-13 and 13-9. You've got the potential of College Game Day, which I think is one of the biggest stories in West Virginia history if it happens. Because for College Game Day to be able to tell that story from that stage, I've said it on the show, I'll say it again here, it writes itself. You let Pat McAfee narrate the open, and then you bring it into Rich Rodriguez closing it with something to say, and I think that you set the entire world on fire with whatever that looks like. Because just imagine that, Pat McAfee played in that game. He was a central focal point in missing 2 kicks in that game that would have put us in the national championship game. Death threats, the whole 9. He went on his own nomadic kind of deal as well, away from West Virginia for a while. not only him, but Rich Rod, right? So together they departed, together they returned. And I just think it'd be a beautiful story. Not to mention, you've got other people at the desk that are pushing for it as well. Nick Saban, obviously, he's a West Virginia guy. And even all the way down to Desmond Howard. I mean, he was at Michigan with Desmond Howard. So, like, there are people, everybody that would be at that desk would have something to say about it and would only drive the hype up even more. I think there's no question at all that this is the number 2. And, depending on what happens, could be the number 1 all time. I just think it depends on what would happen as a result of this year. You got to get past Kyle Lewis, Des Reed, Eli Holstein, Bartholomew. I don't know if he's still there or not, but they've got a ton of dudes there that can play. Obviously, Kyle Lewis, you could put him in the conversation as one of the best linebackers in all of college football, and they've got 2. So yeah, they're a good team. I think we've got to tackle Holstein in the pocket this year. We had at least a chance to sack him to win the game a couple different times, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. So. Yeah, I'm obviously stoked about the game. I'll probably be very emotional that day personally because I ride really high anyway as it comes to the Mountaineers. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an impactful day, one way or the other. And I don't think I can stomach. I mean, we Coos covered it earlier, the SEC 9th game. We might get Pitt back because of that, but not guaranteed. And if we don't, that means we got to live with that loss on top of 13-9 for multiple years, Beard, and I can't do it. I can't do it, man.
No, I get it, and ESPN would be fools not to put College Game Day on that one. And I've looked at the other schedules or the other game schedule, and I think there's like Georgia versus Tennessee, which it's a good SEC matchup, but that's about it. There's no real story or history behind it, so I kind of feel like they have to go that route. And so I'll kick it over to Coos now. Coos, what are your feelings about the Backyard Brawl, where this stacks up?
I definitely think I would put it up there with, in number 2 behind the game we don't speak of because of just, Paul kind of touched on it. I mean, the return of Rich Rod, the 9-13, it's almost poetic, man.
It's written. The football gods are. It's not a coincidence. Yeah. There's no way that you can tell me his sorry, and I don't mean to butt in, but like him returning to play Pitt, which was his last football game he coached, the score, the date, that's not a coincidence. Like that's stuff that's like written in the stars,
Right. Well, we won't say that if we lose, but yes, you're correct.
Right.
It just feels it has a big game feel to it already. Like it's almost like the first 2 games aren't even on the schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I'll be watching them and cheering and all that, it's just like everybody's looking forward to that game. My concern, I'll be honest with you, is the fact that we have so many new guys on the team who aren't going to understand the rivalry. And I know Rich Rod will try to beat it into their brains, and I know the guys who were on the team last year will, but I don't know if you can manufacture the hate that is going to be needed to win that football game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a little concerning to me. But man, I'm excited about that one. And I don't really know what else I can say. Paul was pretty awesome in how he laid it all out there. So I don't really know how I can follow that up. But I definitely think it's the number 2 in my lifetime, probably the second biggest Backyard Brawl, slightly ahead of the first one in this recent series.
Yeah, if I was Rich Rod, I may even play the tape and make him watch it to try to get him to understand what this means.
And the game last year and the game first game of the series.
Right.
I mean, Neil Brown and his teams squandered. West Virginia should be 3-0 in that series right now.
Yeah, I did the math on it, and the 2 games that Pitt won, they won by I think it was 11 points total, like average 5 points per game, and we had them both times. So and I kind of think in my head, if Neil Brown can almost beat Narduzzi 3 times, surely Rich Rod can beat him 1 time.
Yeah, right. Well, I agree, but I'm worried that most Mountaineer fans are underestimating this Pitt team. I think they're going to be really good. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean it will live up to the title. Certainly, it will be a brawl, and it doesn't matter how good or how bad either team is. they slug it out for sure.
Yeah, I mean we hate them so bad we don't want to compliment them. But
Right.
if you take the gold and blue glasses off and look from an analytical perspective, Pitt on paper should be a really good football team this year.
Yeah,
But
I mean, if we
again,
had
like somebody said
Holstein,
earlier, I think it was Whitey said earlier, they do less with more than anybody in the country. So you can't look at their talent and assume they'll be good, but they are talented.
right? And I mean, if we had Holstein as a quarterback, I'd be ecstatic. The
Yeah.
kid's, I mean, he's like your prototypical QB. I mean, he's big and strong, can run. So yeah, there's certainly going to be a handful. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
And so last, I'll kick it over to Luke. He's our young guy here. So not as many years on the backyard brawl as some of us old guys, but from your perspective, somebody that was just a student, like what's the vibe about this backyard brawl compared to what you guys experienced the last few years under Neil Brown?
Yeah, just to put it into perspective, I was about 4 or 5 years old when the infamous, 13-9 game happened. But I remember I didn't really become that big of a football watcher until around middle school, and that was like near the end of the Dana days. So thinking about whenever I came here, obviously the brawl had been off for a little while, but it felt like something just clicked whenever WVU played Pitt, even with the student body. It's not like, it's not that the students don't get it. It's not that they don't hate it. I think that in the era of conference realignment and where these regional rivalries are kind of getting put to the wayside, games like the backyard brawl matter that much, and I think they matter that much more to the students who are members of those schools.
Right.
So I think that I remember my freshman year, it was the Taz Sherman, Gabe Osaboyan year for basketball with
Mm-hmm.
Huggins, and Pitt came to the Coliseum, and it was one of the wildest Coliseum atmospheres I had been a part of as a student, outside of like the Iowa State, the game where they upset them. But I think that this game still very much matters, and that is why College Game Day would be wise to take advantage of that. Because near the end of the year, you have your big rivalries. They're going to go to Ohio State and Michigan. You might as well pencil that in every year. But this game, this early in the year, a game might be the earliest game so far in the schedule as a whole across the country where two teams hate each other just this much.
Right.
And if the fans feel that, you would have to imagine that it makes its way over to the players to a certain degree. And I think the fans are going to play a huge part in this game. I think that look, if you put this game on a neutral field, maybe even like in one of those domed practice facilities where with just nobody watching, I would probably give Pitt the edge. But this this Mile Pushkar atmosphere, I think, will truly be unlike anything that I got to see as a student, because the life got sucked out of that Penn State game real quick this past
Yeah.
season, and
Because your boy Garnett Hollis.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. And then the Pitt game, there was that one too. And listen, I'm a Titans fan. He's a Titan now. I really need him to get it together. And so, but but this Pitt team, like I'm right with Kuz, this Pitt team I think should be very, very good. Holstein, even after the way Pitt fell off in the back half of last season, Holstein's a really good player. Desmond Reed is a really good running back who can get it done through the air. That's how he beat WVU last season, was catching passes out of the backfield. Holstein, I still remember seeing that ball on that second and like 30 go into the end
Yeah.
zone in triple coverage, and you can't ask for a better ball than what he threw right there. WVU, you'd have to imagine that to a degree the coaching staff is already thinking about that game. They will absolutely tell you that they take it 1 week at a time, and you don't really focus on one team until the week. I can't, it would just be too much of like everybody before me said, too much of a storybook opportunity on September 13th, 13-9, for Rich Rod to come back and get back at Pitt after what happened. I just, you'd have to imagine that there is so much energy going into this game. And from the fan perspective, we've seen it in years past too. A lot of fans, this is the only game that matters. A lot of fans checked out right after that Pitt disaster last year. So I think just looking at it the way it stands this year, you have the golden opportunity to get electricity and excitement back into this WVU football program, proving that Rich Rod coming back is a step above Neil Brown and he can do what Neil Brown could not do and consistently beat Pitt. And you got to start doing that right away. And you got to get back to it this season because that is a long time to sit with it till 2029. If you don't get it done this year, that would be a long time to sit there with that loss if you don't get it done about 3-4 weeks from now. So that's just what I'm thinking about it. Young guy's perspective, I
Yeah,
guess.
no,
But
you're right on with that. This is supposed to be that redemption game from
yeah.
2007. If you can't get it done again, somebody had mentioned it. That's a long wait to carry both those burdens, and
Mhm.
so and then you're going to have a lot of fans probably flip from that perspective. I know with Neil Brown last season at Pitt, that's when I officially turn the switch off. Like I was officially done. And I'm usually one that's a little more optimistic and I can hold out hope longer than anybody. But that was the one I was like, nope, I am officially done with him. He cannot bring this program to where it needs to be. Simply because it was such a big game and we fell apart at the end. But I personally, and we'll close out on this. I appreciate you guys all joining in, but personally, I think this one ranks up there as well. Um, I mean, it's a storybook, hopefully a storybook ending, but it is a story unlike any other that's going to be in college football, right? You don't have a coach returning to a program where he is going to play the team like their longtime rival, one of the biggest rivals in college football, and he has the chance to take revenge on the team that essentially kind of ended his career at WVU. I mean, he chose to leave on his own, but I assume had we won that he was going to stay and play for the national championship. Although that's not the opinion of a lot of people, but that's a whole other story. But I think it ranks up there really high with among a lot of the backyard brawls from the past, and so we'll just have to see. Overall, I think we're headed in the right direction. I think Ren made the right hire. I didn't want. I wasn't sure at first, but after the press conferences and the things I've seen and players' reactions and podcasts I've listened to, it's a there's a different air of this team that I've seen so far, that I've heard about at least. Right, the physicality and those are the things that we were missing, and so I'm just really looking forward to it. Like I said, I'll be there the first game against Robert Morris and going to the OU game and going to the game against Utah. Hopefully more. I'm going to try to get as many as I can, and I'm hoping it's more than just a nostalgia tour for this first season. Right, it's we actually see that we walk the walk and not just talk the talk of hard edge. And I appreciate everyone who took the time to join in and talk. Everyone who joined in to listen, I appreciate. We ran over time for about 15 minutes, so apologize for that. But it's just fun to get everyone in on this. And so, again, this has been the Mountaineer Roundtable. Um, I will have this recorded. I'll repost it on my Twitter or my X. I'll make a YouTube video out of it as well, and so you can catch it there if you haven't. I'll keep you updated on stuff that I have on my YouTube page. I like to share all the stuff. Everyone who spoke here, I try to share their stuff on YouTube or at least X as much as I can, just to get all the WVU content out there. So again, I appreciate everyone that came in to speak. I appreciate everyone that came in to listen. You guys have a good day. God bless, and let's go Mountaineers.